Happy Halloween night from Chicago, where the 49ers were 33-22 winners today. And I'm now in my hotel room after a fun little night out. I actually went out to get some Czech food. You guys know that I'm half Czech. Well, there's a big Czech population here in Chicago. So I went out to Cafe Prague and I was very, very happy with my fried cheese. Watched some World Series, watched some of that Cowboys game as they beat the Vikings and Kirk Cousins. And then I came back here to the hotel over in River North, fly back to the Bay Area tomorrow. The 49ers are now 3-4, and all of a sudden it's looking a whole lot rosier than it was just, 12 hours ago or so. They can beat the Cardinals next week because there's a very good chance that Arizona is not going to have Kyler Murray with his ankle injury. And if that happens and the 49ers will be 4-4, it'll essentially be a clean slate and they'll have the Rams coming to town on Monday Night Football. And I think that's extremely exciting if you're a 49ers fan, because after the mess of the past month and those four straight losses, the fact that you didn't fall out of the playoff race, the fact that there's just so much parity in the NFL, and you have a chance to really flex your talent and go after maybe not only the wild card, but also the West, because there's still a lot of time left to play. That's a gift. And the 49ers certainly have talent. That is the big takeaway from their win against Chicago. The 49ers dictate what happens in these games. This is not the 2017 or the 2018 team, and I guess I should say the 2017 team pre-Jimmy Garoppolo, where so much was dependent on how opponents played, right? The 49ers just weren't able to go mano a mano against these opponents talent-wise. So if you faced an Aaron Rodgers and he was hot that day, you were screwed. You weren't going to win. If you faced just any really, decent quarterback and he had a good rhythm day, you were in big trouble. What changed for the 49ers starting in 2019 talent-wise is that if they delivered their game at a reasonable level of health, they could control the flow of that game by putting their stamp and their brand of football on that particular game. And we saw the 49ers do that when they walked into Soldier Field today and had Jimmy Garoppolo pass for 300 plus, Elijah Mitchell run for 100 plus, and Deebo Samuel catch for 150 plus, I think 171 receiving yards. That was the 49ers offensive blueprint put into execution. It was a balanced Shanahan attack. They relied on the outside zone. They hit the outside zone because Elijah Mitchell's a complete stud. For the first time since week one, the 49ers have a running back who can execute outside zone in the way that sets the Shanahan offense up with its spine, with its backbone. If you can't pitch outside, run between those creases and get extra yardage for explosive runs in the outside zone, Shanahan cannot run a fully efficient 60-minute game plan of play action and nice throws to not only Deebo Samuel, but the entire collection of wide receivers. And because the 49ers had that spine, courtesy Elijah Mitchell today, Jimmy Garoppolo had plenty of time in the pocket. And yes, I'm going to credit the 49ers offensive line and pass protection. That comes in a little bit. But in general, you have the run game, you have play action, you have time to throw to the entire possibility of routes downfield. And that's what we saw today. The 49ers offense was healthy and it dictated terms. And the biggest crock that I had heard over the past few weeks was, the 49ers aren't talented enough. They should just punt away this 2021 season. They should focus on 2022. It's like, what are you even talking about? The 49ers in 2019 had the most talented roster in the league. It was the most talented and deep roster in the league. And enough of that roster is still around for there to always be some kind of hope and always be some kind of kindle, right? A chance of a spark that the talent is going to shine through on a game in and game out basis. That doesn't just fly out the window unless all the QBs get hurt and you have to start Nick Mullins or CJ Beathard, right? That's when it was a lost season. That's not the case this season. The 49ers, aside from having Trey Lance on the bench, currently have Jimmy Garoppolo healthy. And because of that, this team can do stuff. This team is talented enough to dictate the flow of games if they execute correctly. And what we had seen through the past 4 weeks was a lot of misexecution. It led to Kyle Shanahan tightening up, not knowing how to really get into a rhythm because the 49ers couldn't convert some of those key third downs. And it just led to a downstream malaise across the entire team, which happened from an X's and O's standpoint down to an attitude standpoint. And, Shanahan had talked about this a couple weeks into the losing streak. He said, we need to turn this around, because if you don't turn it around and you keep on losing, then the narrative becomes reality. And the 49ers were dangerously close to allowing narrative to become reality. If people said enough times, and they tweeted enough times, and they TikToked enough times, and they Instagram storied enough times that this 49ers team doesn't have enough talent, they should pack it in and move on to 2022. Well, after enough losses on the field, no matter how untrue that might have been to begin with, that would have become the reality. And I think the 49ers were dangerously close to losing their psychological grip on things. I mean, you saw how quiet and sad Kyle Shanahan was in these press conferences. You saw the lack of verve on the field. The 49ers weren't making those big plays that could take control of games. You saw that really creeping into the 49ers, right? It wasn't a good vibe around the building. They needed their playmakers to step up and reverse the course of what was going on. It starts with one win. You can't get to a string of wins without that first one. And I liken it to pushing a car, right? If your car is stalled on the side of the road and you got a group of men trying to push the car, the first couple inches of pushing that car are going to be hard. You have to build up some momentum. And then once it gets rolling, you could start really, getting some speed. And then you could hop in and you could punch the gas because you got that car out of its stalled state. And the 49ers were stalled for 4 weeks. Nothing was going right cohesively. It was a disjointed mess. They had stuff going right in individual pieces, but it seemed that a different thing would go right and a whole bunch of different things would go wrong on a week-by-week basis. They had to fix that against the Chicago Bears, and they're going to have to fix that and make sure it stays fixed moving forward. The reason that I preached energy over the whole course of this whole week, I said the 49ers need, just this infusion of playmaking ability right now. So somebody needs to step up and do something, is because there was a different problem every single week. So one week I could say, oh, they need to be better on the pregame script, right? The first 20 plays. The next week I would say, oh, they have to be better at, adjusting here. Oh, they have to be better at avoiding defensive pass interference penalties there. Pass rush has to be better here. You get the idea. There was like 6 or 7 different things, and they were cycling through those 7 different things that they had to fix. That's extremely unsustainable. The sign of a mediocre to bad team is a team that runs into a different problem every week and can never manage to be good. So instead of, using the microscope and having to fix every small thing, I thought that the blanket remedy was the only way that the 49ers would turn this on. And that would be by utilizing the talent that they do indeed have and making a couple splash plays that raise that energy level of the whole roster and let the team hit a rhythm. The defense, I do not think, was very good for the 49ers against the Bears. Justin Fields did a number on them. But we saw what I just said happen for the 49ers on the offensive side of the ball. And it really began, it wasn't something that happened right at kickoff at 10 a.m. Pacific, 12 o'clock Chicago time. It was something that, didn't really settle in until around halftime. Depending on, who you talk to, what you feel perspective-wise about the game. It might have happened before halftime when Jimmy Garoppolo threw the deep pass to Deebo Samuel, which was a dime downfield. So much for Garoppolo can't throw downfield, right? Or it might have happened in the third quarter when Deebo Samuel caught the screen on 3rd and 19 from Jimmy Garoppolo and bolted 83 yards to set up a touchdown that wouldn't tie the game because the 49ers missed the extra point, but would definitely tilt the game in the 49ers' favor. I tend to think that the real turning point was that 83-yarder combined with Garoppolo's touchdown run a few plays after on 3rd down. From that point forward, the 49ers played the game downhill. The drops that plagued them in the first half stopped happening. The penalties that plagued them in the first half, the penalties that got them into the 3rd and 19, from which Deebo had to bust free for that 83-yard gain in the first place, those stopped coming. And all of a sudden, like magic, the 49ers' problems of offensive cohesion just poof, they vanished. That energy level, that rhythm, positivity was there because they made plays. Deebo Samuel made the play. I mean, that was a superstar play, 83-yard catch and run. Jimmy Garoppolo went off script because the script wasn't working on that 3rd and goal. Deebo Samuel was supposed to come in motion, get the jet sweep and score, but he was coming in motion too late. I don't know if it was Deebo's fault or if it was just an alignment fault from somebody else on the offense, but credit to Jimmy Garoppolo for recognizing what was going wrong and taking the snap himself and running to the portion of the field where the blocking had already been set up for Deebo Samuel. Great awareness, just as he was taught to do, and Jimmy scored the touchdown. The 49ers badly needed that touchdown, and guess what? It would not have happened had they just panicked because something didn't go perfectly right on the sideline. They had to step up in the heat of battle, deliver a play, and score. So a lot of people talking about Trey Lance in that situation. I wondered a little bit too, but I also figured, and we talked about this entering the week, Trey Lance was coming off of his knee sprain. This was his first game active again after the knee sprain. That's a spot where you don't fault Kyle Shanahan for only having Trey Lance available in an emergency. That was totally possible entering this game, and that was completely what Kyle Shanahan was thinking. So he gave all the red zone stuff to Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo delivered with 2 touchdown runs back in front of his hometown fans in Chicago, 45 minutes away from where he grew up, and he played a stellar game. Efficient passing-wise, efficient running-wise, and again, he was at the controls of the 49ers offense that left its imprint on the Bears defense, which is a top 10 defense, not featuring Khalil Mack, which I think was a big loss, and they lost Eddie Jackson early. But this was a good defense that the 49ers controlled game flow against. For the first time since like late week 2 against Philadelphia, the 49ers dictated what happened on their terms. Even against the Green Bay Packers, it wasn't on the 49ers' terms. They were scrambling, trying to come from behind. They couldn't just sit there and administer the outside zone, administer the play action, administer whatever they wanted in the red zone on their terms. Today, the 49ers won the arm wrestling match against the Bears, and that was huge. All right, let's take a look at some questions. We're going to go through some of these. I want to make this as interactive as possible. My article on The Athletic, Jimmy Garoppolo back in Chicago rediscovers the efficiency of old in the 49ers win. Can you guys believe that Jimmy Garoppolo has only been to Soldier Field, the stadium closest to where he grew up, 45 minutes away, 2 times in his life? Both times that Jimmy Garoppolo has set foot into Soldier Field, he has led the 49ers to a win, a comeback win both times actually, but to a win that has stopped a losing streak. He didn't go to any Bears games growing up. I guess he just watched them on TV. Maybe he was a bigger college fan, but Jimmy didn't go to any Bears games growing up. He set foot in Soldier Field for the first time in 2017, brought that magical 5-game run with that, whole stretch there. And now he set foot back in Soldier Field in 2021 and gave the 49ers that direction, that energy, that consistency under center that they really needed to win this game. This is a good one right here. Brandon Ayuk and Charlie Warner did look nice today. Charlie Warner is making strides. He's gotten stronger over the course of his time in the NFL. This is his 2nd season now, so the sophomore year for Charlie Warner, just like it is, I guess, for Brandon Ayuk. Both of those guys have gotten physically stronger. For Charlie Warner, it's probably been easier to handle that extra weight because he needs it for blocking at the tight end position. But this guy, he made a big catch for the 49ers against the Colts. He's great, I think, for the 49ers blocking in that outside zone. Another player who was excellent today was Kyle Juszczyk, just making difficult block after difficult block. But the 49ers were firing to the edges, right? Elijah Mitchell's a good back for that. Elijah Mitchell graded higher than any NFL running back today if you look at the advanced metrics and the yardage over expectation. So once you have that outside zone runner who can really hit that edge and stretch the defense, all you need is the competent blocking in front of him. And I'll tell you what, Charlie Warner is a guy who can competently block for the 49ers while giving them pass run versatility out of the tight end position. More good news, you get George Kittle back next week. So maybe Charlie Warner, who's a better run blocker, I think hands down, than Ross Dwelly, maybe he's going to be that guy that is able to pair with George Kittle as the 49ers, hopefully for their sake, heal up moving forward and get ready to take on the Arizona Cardinals. Speaking of Brandon Ayuk, I was impressed today. I think that, we talk about Brandon Ayuk a lot on this show. I think it's obvious what's, happened in simplistic terms. It's less obvious if you zoom in on the exact whys behind all of it. But Brandon Ayuk simply, as I said, hasn't been as good in 2021 as he was as a rookie in 2020 for whatever reason. Sophomore slump, maybe a little bit mentally. It's a situation with Brandon Ayuk that he had to show up about 5 to 10 pounds heavier. So he's getting used to a new body, right? All getting ready for the greater wear and tear of the NFL. And he had to take step 2 in processing Kyle Shanahan's playbook. So year 2, step 2, you see a lot of these receivers have these second year slumps, sophomore slumps, I guess we can call them. It's not easy to turn that corner. And the 49ers hoped that he would sooner. He obviously didn't. They blame a lot of the hamstring issues in training camp for the reason that this has taken a little bit longer than they've wanted. But I think that today and this week, Brandon Ayuk showed real, tangible signs of life. I didn't want to read too much into it during the week of practice, but Ayuk went from doing and starting all the wide receiver drills last of the group to being the first one in line. And you hear a lot of players always talk about, oh, yeah, I always love how so-and-so does the drills first. So I think it's a mentality thing. And I think that Brandon Ayuk might have finally been ready to just kind of grab it by the horns this week, go first in practice. I can't wait to actually ask him about that here on an on-game day to see what that was all about. But he found the soft spots in the zone today. His first catch was an off-schedule play from Jimmy Garoppolo rolling right. He just seemed like a much more featured part of what the 49ers were doing. And that 2-point conversion obviously was a huge play later in the game. On top of that, Ayuk also had the best punt return of his time returning punts for the 49ers. So everything seemed to be rounding in the form, but from a big picture perspective, it wasn't only the Deebo Samuel show, even though he had another huge game for the 49ers. This was Ayuk making some big plays for the team. Mohamed Sanu made some big plays for the team, even though he had a tough drop early on. But the point is the ball was distributed today with more evenness than it has been in the past. And George Kittle's coming back next week. So the 49ers absolutely have something to build on in that regard. And this team is only going to go as far as their offensive diversity takes them. We saw the pitfall associated with force feeding Deebo Samuel against the Colts. And obviously they've been force feeding Deebo Samuel throughout the entire season leading up into this game. But when you have counterbalances offensively, you can actually execute and accomplish what Shanahan wants to execute and accomplish in terms of a balanced play action attack. Outside zone to both sides, usage of the entire field off of that play action, and a quick short yak game, yak generating game to set up those yards after the catch. And the 49ers, more than any other game this season, executed that blueprint, which is so reliant on a domino effect happening, right? If you don't have that outside zone, all of a sudden a lot of other stuff is scuttled. If you don't have the other receivers, if you're force feeding the ball to Deebo Samuel, all of a sudden the defense can overplay their hand and not pay for it. And today the 49ers made a good Bears defense pay whenever they overplayed their hand. Jimmy Garoppolo was sitting there with a lot of time to throw. And that leads me to talk about the 49ers offensive line. This, from a big picture perspective, this 49ers team, we talk a lot about 2019 because there is talent overlap between 2021 and 2019. But people think about 2019, I think, in the wrong way. They think about it in a black and white way. They think, oh, well, if the 49ers, they don't have DeForest Buckner, they've lost a couple other pieces, they're not as healthy as they were in certain parts of 2019, we should just throw that example of 2019 out the window. The 49ers can never be as good as that team. This is its own year, blah, 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 this and that. There's some truth to that, but most of it I disagree with because that starts from an incorrect premise. The incorrect premise is that this 49ers team was somehow expected to emulate the 2019 team. No, that is not the way anybody should be thinking of this. Every team is different. The 49ers obviously have significant personnel changes since 2019, And it should have never been considered that the 49ers should try to emulate 2019 or bust. What 2019 is valuable for is using it as a measuring stick to evaluate this 2021 team, because since there is some talent overlap, and since there is a coaching overlap, since there is a structural overlap, and since that 2019 team did go the distance, they did make it to the Super Bowl and they were really close to winning it, we can identify where this 2021 team needs to get better, where they are already might be better than 2019, and how they might finish this long journey in a similar spot as 2019. And obviously, as today's game showed, we're still early in this whole journey. We're only 7 games in, and this is still an evolving product that the 49ers have put on the field. But when I look at 2019, what I saw that year was an all-world defense paired with an efficient offense that managed to be efficient because of a heavy focus on run production and a masking of subpar pass protection. Okay, the 49ers in the Shanahan era up to 2021 did not pass block well. So it's been a run-heavy offense. They've needed to shield, really tough situations at both right guard and center. When I compare that to 2021, this defense that the 49ers are fielding this year is nowhere near what that 2019 defense was. We might be having a different discussion if Jason Verrett were healthy, if Javon Kinlaw were healthy and actually being what the 49ers needed him to be for that run-stopping prowess at defensive tackle. If Jimmy Ward were healthy, it looks like he's going to miss some time. If Dre Greenlaw were healthy, I'd be much more willing to entertain the notion that this 2021 defense could really carry the 49ers team. But guess what? Jason Verrett's not walking through that door. Javon Kinlaw's not walking through that door. DeForest Buckner's not walking through that door. He's on the Colts now. This, as you saw today when Justin Fields was running around breaking tackles, when all that bootleg action was working for the Bears, when they're eating up time to possession because the 49ers couldn't get off the field on third down, what you saw today is a 49ers defense that's not going to be as good as the 2019 defense. We have a large enough sample now, and we know enough about the injuries and the personnel losses to say with confidence that these 49ers have a ceiling defensively, and it's not an overpowering one. They can absolutely still be a serviceable unit, but especially under a first-year coordinator with Robert Saleh gone, with that talent not what it was a couple of years ago, I think serviceable to good is as much as you can hope for from this 49ers defense. So from a big picture perspective, if you're hoping to attain big-time goals and you're using that 2019 team and what they accomplished as a gauge, and you already know that your defense is worse than 2019's, the only place where you're going to make up all this slack is on offense. Your offense is going to have to be better. And guess what? The 2019 offense was already pretty good, so it's going to be hard for the 49ers to make up that ground offensively. But the big deal about this game in Chicago was that it showed us the 49ers, as unlikely as it still might be, because they're still 3-4 with a lot of work in front of them, but as unlikely as it might be, they showed that they do have potential to be better offensively than they were a couple of years ago. And the main reason they have potential to be better offensively than they were in 2019 is because the offensive line can actually pass protect competently. This is a huge, huge deal. They ranked number 4, number 5 in pass block win rate. They ranked number 26 in each of the past 2 seasons. The Bears didn't even touch Jimmy Garoppolo today. The most pressure they got was on that early third down where he had that really nice quick release over the middle to Mohamed Sanu for a 26-yard gain. But there are plays where Garoppolo could bake a cake back there in that pocket behind the line of scrimmage. And I understand there was no Khalil Mack, but Quinn was out there. Robert Quinn was there playing for the Chicago Bears. They still have Akeem Nicks in the middle of that formation, the defensive tackle. This is still a defense that efficiency-wise, even without Khalil Mack, can get the job done when they're not facing an offense as balanced as the 49ers showcased today. But with an offensive line as sturdy as the 49ers in pass protection, you could dismantle a lot of defenses in this National Football League. And you combine, the fact that Alex Mack at center has been able to so efficiently organize the 49ers and give the 49ers such a big upgrade in terms of pass protection and communication there. You combine that with the fact they're running outside zone and setting up play action at the efficiency that they did Sunday, and you have a formula for a much higher ceiling offensively than the 49ers have had lately. And, that's even before we consider the fact that I really do think that Kyle Shanahan wants to play Trey Lance when he's healthier, when he's further away from the injury. I think we're going to see plenty of Trey Lance. And if he's utilized properly and the 49ers have the kind of leverage offensively they had in the second half today, Lance can blow the doors off of the potential of this offense, even higher. It's what we were talking about in the preseason. But this is something the 49ers will need to have because the defense is not as good. They need to get it from the offense. And I think that's why that was such a big deal to see the offense play the way that it did against Arizona. Next few games are winnable. Yes, I said even Arizona. Our defense was effing up, though. The 49ers defense wasn't great today. A lot of missed tackles, a lot of penalties. They lead the league in productivity loss to penalties. It's ugly on the defensive side. I'll tell you what, though, no pass interference for the 49ers defense. They got to be happy about that. Chicago came with a really interesting game plan today. I thought that the Bears were going to test the 49ers downfield extensively just because the 49ers are defensive pass interference machines, or at least they were entering this game. And Justin Fields had one of the highest deep pass throw rates entering this game. But what Chicago did was counterintuitive, and for a lot of this game, it actually worked. They decided to go with the short passing game because Justin Fields had been giving up so many sacks in the line too, but a lot of them were on Justin Fields, 22 sacks in like 5 games. It was way too many. So the Bears went to the short passing game, and they rolled Fields out a lot. And they ended up owning time of possession because of that, because the 49ers looked very unprepared for it. Their defensive ends weren't holding the edges. Fields was getting outside the pocket. He was running a bit, and he was completing a lot of those short passes. So the Bears held control of this game flow while the 49ers weren't even committing defensive pass interference penalties. It was really quite remarkable for some time. But that lack of explosive plays from the Bears ultimately did them in because they didn't build a big enough lead. They didn't convert enough times in the red zone early in the game, even though Fields had that one great pass to the tight end to score their first touchdown. And in general, they just didn't distance themselves from the 49ers in any kind of sufficient way. And then once Jimmy Garoppolo and Deebo Samuel and Elijah Mitchell got really hot in the second half, it was the 49ers who grabbed control. And then finally, fittingly for the 49ers defense, once Fields finally did heave one deep, it wasn't a pass interference. It was an interception. But still, it was a defensive performance for the 49ers that, I just said this 5 minutes ago. It exemplified their limitations defensively because the talent without Buckner, without Verrett, without Greenlaw right now, without Dee Ford today, without Kinlaw, without that big – they're really weak up the middle, that defensive tackle. Without all of those pieces, the 49ers just aren't overpowering defensively. So the defense was decent to bad today, probably – I would almost say more bad because other teams made Justin Fields look a lot worse than the 49ers did. But the offense took care of it. And yes, the next few games are winnable, according to this comment. I agree. Arizona and Kyler Murray, he's going to be questionable this week. And, Matt might even be ruled out. They said that it would be a 1 to 4 week injury. I don't know what the hell that means. But if he's out this week, it'll be Colt McCoy for Arizona. And if Murray plays, maybe he won't be 100%. We already saw that Arizona was beatable by the 49ers when the 49ers almost beat them on the road in a game that Trey Lance wasn't efficient at all. Well, I think if the 49ers have both Garoppolo and Lance at their disposal at home against Arizona, even though they haven't won a home game in over a year, I think it's winnable. We'll see what happens. No Watt this time. J.J. Watt's done for the year for the Arizona Cardinals as well. It's a 1 week at a time kind of thing. Yeah, the 49ers defense, I do think it was soft, and I do think that they were giving up some of that underneath stuff to the Bears, so they wouldn't be challenged on the defensive pass interference penalties. The good news is that when your offense is playing well enough, you can play a little softer like the 49ers did today because you can count on the offense to grab the game by the horns and take control of it, and that's exactly what happened. Let's see. There are no quick fixes in life or football, and losing is contagious. Absolutely. Great point from David Robbins. So winning can be contagious too, and the 49ers just had to get the ship turned around. It was hard to turn it around, but I think they did. Now they got to get it sailing in the right direction, and that happens next week. This is more from the same guy. Pros, cons between 2019 and 2021 should be looked at to keep perspective on the differences. Absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. You have to use 2019 as a gauge, but you can't use it as a guide. Let's put it that way. You can measure, but you can't emulate because you have different players now at key positions. But you could say, hey, this is where we need more efficiency. And from the offensive side, 49ers are going to need it. No word on Jimmy Ward yet. We're going to know more tomorrow. Anyway, I thought, from a symbolic perspective, obviously excellent for the 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo, even threw the ball toward where some of his old college roommates were sitting after that second touchdown. He's a gamer. We know Jimmy's limitations. We also know his strengths. And I think oftentimes the narrative around Jimmy Garoppolo is an unfair one because people are so excited to see Trey Lance or they'll see a running quarterback and they'll get excited about the big arm, physical prowess aspect of the game, but they fail to appreciate a lot of the efficiency things that Jimmy Garoppolo does well. Well, today those were on full display and he delivered a little bit off schedule. So you have to give credit where it's due. He had a great performance back in front of the hometown fans, and you could really see Kyle Shanahan's vision with this. He just needs that baseline efficiency from Garoppolo. And a lot of it is just tethered to what other guys in the offense are doing. Again, they haven't had a true outside zone plus threat for a while. And now Elijah Mitchell is developing into that, but they hadn't had one since Raheem Mostert got hurt because Mitchell was still a very green rookie. But with the development of Mitchell, with the dual threat capability of somebody like George Kittle coming back, with the offensive line playing the way that it is, you can see that the ceiling of this 49ers offense is higher than it has been in years prior. And again, that's before I talk about Trey Lance, who I absolutely still think has a role on this football team this season. Still a little early after that knee sprain. We'll probably see a little bit more of him. I would think Kyle Shanahan's saving some of that stuff for the divisional game. 49ers did win the turnover battle. That was huge. Win the turnover battle, you'll usually win the game. They had the Norman interception, and they helped, they protected the ball. I thought Jimmy made a bad throw early on that Tease Tabor almost intercepted. But other than that, he was clean with the football. Nobody's fumbling the ball for the 49ers. Again, you had to be happy with the way that they efficiently executed in Chicago, and it looked a whole lot like a good 2019 game offensively, but with a higher ceiling. I really do think this offense's ceiling is higher than it was, especially if they could heal up 2 years ago. It's going to need to be with that defense not being very good. Luke Walsh has a lot of good comments here. The 49ers were losing third downs on both sides of the ball until the fourth quarter. Think Shanahan will emphasize situational football in practice this week? I think he's always emphasizing situational football. And I think the 49ers were losing third down on defense because they simply aren't that good defensively this year. I think it's an average to maybe a decent defense based on what they have right now. They might heal up a little bit. They might, turn into a solidly good unit by the end of the season, but there's a lot of work. But on offense, they just kept on shooting themselves in the foot early in the game. Those drops, those penalties. Again, once they found that verb, once they found that rhythm and those mistakes went out the window and that flow entered instead of it, all of a sudden they started winning on third down. So that's the key. It's to sustain that energy that they had. And you have to credit Garoppolo. You had to get it from your main players, right? They had to be the ones that did the heavy lifting here. You saw Garoppolo animated on the sideline. You saw him locked in, focused, yet calm in this game. You saw Deebo Samuel fiery for this 49ers team. It was really a good effort from the headliners, from the 49ers, to make sure that they captained this thing in an appropriate way. Jimmy does 75% well, and that should be enough if the rest of the team plays to their max potential. Yeah, and it's the case for every quarterback. Look how much Patrick Mahomes is struggling this year. Just look around the league. It's the teams that are playing as a team that are setting up the infrastructure for success for their QBs. They do well. People get hyper focused on Garoppolo, good, bad, whatever. On the aggregate now, after this game, the sample's still relatively small in this season, so it fluctuates with every game. But on the aggregate, he's now been an overall efficient quarterback. And you take out the monsoon against Indianapolis, and he's been very efficient for the 49ers this season, when healthy, obviously, because of that calf injury. So, it's a long season. You can see why he's the option right now that the 49ers like best at the top of the quarterback room. And I say this every week. You can also see why Trey Lance is so promising and why the 49ers want to integrate him. Maybe not right after he's coming off a knee sprain, but I think you're going to see some of that. But they need stability from Garoppolo. I talked so much about his regression and efficiency over the 2020 and 2021 seasons. Well, today was a sign maybe of optimism for the 49ers that he can turn that regression around and given health, and give the 49ers the stability they need to go places this season. We'll see moving ahead. Jimmy seems to play better on the road and is undefeated playing on the road this year. Could this be an advantage if they go on the road to playoffs? Absolutely. I don't know if the sample size is big enough, but I think in the past 2 seasons, Garoppolo's been 11-2 on the road, but they're not winning anything at home. So that's really tough. It really is. You have to look to see if the sample size is big enough for it to be significant. Maybe Levi Stadium offers a little bit of a curse. I don't know. But he is able, I think, to bark out the calls, do the silent count, everything that he needs to do on the road from a veteran's perspective. And the 49ers value that, as they should. Today it came in big for them. Yeah, and Jimmy Garoppolo obviously is a rhythm quarterback. The 49ers are a rhythm offense. The outside zone feeds into the play action, which could feed into some inside stuff that they run, which, combines with the occasional deep shot. All that stuff is so rhythm-based, and I know it is for probably any NFL offense. You have to have some kind of flow. For the 49ers, if you take one of the components out, it crashes a lot quicker. That's just how Shanahan runs his offense. But when it's flowing, it could be one of the best offenses in the league, right? Today, the 49ers scored 33 against the Bears. Tampa Bay scored 38 against them. The Rams scored 34 against them. Nobody else has come close to that output. And the 49ers did it despite an extremely slow start. So this offense, it's like higher risk, higher reward. If stuff isn't clicking, then it could look really bad like it has through parts of this season. But if it's clicking, it could look really good. It's a rhythm-based offense, and Garoppolo's a rhythm-based quarterback at the helm. Yep, the offensive line has played well. The pass protection has been really good. I talked about that at the top of the show. Anyway, I'm in Chicago. I had some good Czech food. It was a really fun weekend here. I fly back to the Bay Area tomorrow. Maybe I record one more of these tomorrow, but it was fun getting everybody on board. If you're on Twitter, make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're trying to grow the product there. I only simulcast some of these to Twitter. All of them are on YouTube. Not all of them are on Twitter. But it was fun to have a nice little discussion here after a good game from Jimmy Garoppolo. A so-so game for the 49ers defense, but a win for the team. They're now 3-4, and they have this massive 2-game homestand coming up. You have Arizona, and you have the Rams. These games will disproportionately impact how this team is viewed, rightfully so, in this 2021 season. If you beat both Arizona and LA, regardless of who's at quarterback for the Cardinals, you are firmly a contender if you're the 49ers. You move from 3-4 to 5-4, and boy, then you play Jacksonville right after that. It could get really, really tasty for the 49ers. But if you split these games, you're in purgatory still. If you lose both of them, I think you're a pretender at this point, and you're not even pretending if you're the 49ers. You drop to 3-6. It's not good. So they have to defend the home field these next 2 weeks. They have to improve defensively. They have to get opportunistic stops. But most of all, the 49ers need their offense to be the driver. They need Garoppolo to be the driver. Lance could be the turbocharger. He can turn on the jets for them in his action against the Cardinals and the Rams as he heals up. But the 49ers will need to be an offensively driven team this year. That's the main takeaway right now. These seasons are novels. Every game is a chapter. This latest chapter has given us, a real firm indication that the 49ers have real offensive potential. Don't believe anybody who says this team doesn't have talent. It's a matter of harnessing the talent and not underperforming, performing up to expectation. And that expectation should be a good offense for the 49ers along with a serviceable defense based on what we know. The rest is unwritten. They have the Cardinals coming in next week. And I hope that everybody enjoyed this Sunday. Happy Halloween, everybody. We're going to talk to you soon, and we'll finish up with a nice little comment from David Robbins. 2 huge games coming up in midseason. This is Gut Check time. It is indeed. We'll talk to everybody next time. Goodbye from the Windy City.